Yo, Shortbox Nation, this is Botter, and I'm here to tell you right now that con season starts early this year with the return of Northeast Florida's premier anime, comic book, and sci-fi event, Collective Con. That's right, Northeast Florida's largest pop culture convention returns for its 10th year on March 8th through the 10th at the Prime Osborne Center in Jacksonville, Florida. 10 years of Collective Con, they're pulling all the stops out to make sure this is a can't-miss event. And the guest list they got going, don't even get me started on the guest list. I mean, they've got A-list celebrity guests and voice actors from some of your favorite movies, anime, and video games like Elijah Wood and Sean Ashton, Ray Park, Trisha Helfer, Ross Marquand, Max Middleman, and Bo-Katan herself will be there, Katie Sackhoff. Tell me what other convention is giving you the opportunity to meet Frodo and Sam from Lord of the Rings, Darth Maul, and One Punch Man all under the same roof. Only at Collective Con. And if you're looking to get some of your favorite comics signed, or if you want to get an original sketch from some of the best comic artists in the world, well, you're in luck, because there'll be plenty of comic and creator guests there, like DC comic artist extraordinaire Clay Mann, Harvey Award-nominated illustrator John Taylor Christopher, Marvel and DC cover artist Chris Stevens, and acclaimed Star Wars author Timothy Zahn. They'll all be at Collective Con this year. And if you're looking to bring the family, or if you want to make a weekend out of it, you're in luck, because there'll be so much going on at Collective Con that weekend in the form of vendors, fan panels, video game tournaments, cosplay contests, after parties, and a bunch of fan events. You can purchase single and 3-day weekend passes now using the link in this episode's show notes, or by going to collectivecon.com to book your tickets and hotel. Buy your tickets now, and I'll see you at Collective Con, March 8th through the 10th. Now let's start the show.
Look, if you were born on Mandalore, you believe one thing. If you're born on Alderaan, you believe something else. But guess what? Neither one of them exists anymore. Hey, I'm just a realist. I'm a survivor, just like you.
Let's get one thing straight. You and I are nothing alike.
Greetings, Mandalorian fans, Star Wars nerds, and our returning friends. And of course, for our first-time listeners new to the show, welcome to the Shortbox Podcast, your soon-to-be favorite comic book and pop culture podcast. I'm your host, Botter, and this is the 7th installment of our Mandalorian Season 2 recap and commentary series. We'll be covering the latest episode, Episode 7, Chapter 15, The Believer. So consider this your spoiler warning for the rest of the episode. We'll be discussing important plot points and other Easter eggs going forward. Joining me today is a panel of returning and season co-hosts. Two of them are here with me in the Shortbox studio. We've got Miss Blythe Brumleve with champagne in hand.
Per the usual.
My right-hand man, Cesar Cordero, is in the house.
This is the way.
And last but not least, calling in from a secret Imperial mining hub on Morak is our favorite Star Wars know-it-all, Mr. Lars Lundquist.
Lars, I'm so sorry.
Hello, hello.
You deserve better.
And our listeners can't see it, but Lars has two special guests joining him in his room. We've got Grogu.
Did you even ask if Lars wants that information out there?
He does, for sure. Lars, do you want that information out there?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
There we go.
I'm not ashamed that I made a purchase at 3 a.m. whenever this life-size cutout of Ahsoka went up for sale.
Here, how about this? I'll take a quick
awesome.
little screen grab so people can see Grogu and Ahsoka and smile. Hey, there we go.
That's a lovely smile.
Okay, before we get into the main event, I have some people to thank that help us pay the bills and inspire us to make this show happen in the first place. First up, this episode is brought to you commercial-free by our sponsor, Gotham City Limit.
Hey!
Jacksonville's premier place for comics, toys, collectibles, and more. If you live in Jax, stop by the shop on Southside Boulevard and tell Ben the Shortbox sent you. Lastly, this show is made possible in part by donations from our Patreon subscribers. Their contributions go a long way in ensuring this show's longevity and the continued production of episodes like the one you're enjoying now. If you're interested in supporting the show and earning our eternal gratitude and some awesome rewards along the way, visit patreon.com/theshortbox to become a patron, or click the link in the episode description. Let's give it up one more time for our sponsor and patrons and get started analyzing this episode of The Mandalorian, starting with the credits. This episode is written and directed by Rick Fumiiwa and produced by Jon Favreau. There's several returning guest appearances in this episode as well that include Bill Burr as Miggs Mayfield, Tamora Morrison as Boba Fett, Ming-Na Wen as Fennec Shand, Giancarlo Esposito as Moff Gideon, Gina Carano as Cara Dune, and Pedro Pascal as Stormtrooper TK593, a.k.a. Brown Eyes.
A.k.a. Fingers.
And last but not least, of course, jokes aside, is Richard Brake as Valen Hess.
who, shameless plug, we've interviewed for this show. It was about Game of Thrones, not Star Wars, but he was one of our earliest Patreon-only bonus episodes, so check out our Patreon.
Yeah, he fucking killed Batman's parents.
Yo, he's out here killing a lot more than just parents this episode, in addition to a few. All right, so plot-wise, for this episode, Cara Dune commits an old enemy of Mando to his custody. In order to move against the Empire and free Grogu, the Mandalorian must trust his old adversary in more ways than one. Blythe, how about you go ahead and set the framework for our conversation? Will you help us recap the big moments for this episode? In your opinion, what are the top 3 big moments in this episode?
I think the first big moment starts off with the episode title called The Believer. And it talks about the throughout the entire episode, they struggle with the themes of freedom and order. And so that structures the entire episode. So that's one of my first ones, is The Believer episode title. And then I think it's the first episode that we really focus on Din as the character. And he is essentially over the last few episodes become a father, like right before our very eyes. And you've seen it from the very beginning to the middle and then even to the end, where he's threatening Moff Gideon with a repeat of his famous speech from the end of last season. And then the third big moment is the allegiances are formed depending on where you are born. This is the first time that we've seen a victory from the stormtroopers' perspective. And so to hear the heroic music playing in the background, to see them cheering and yelling, glory to the Empire, that's something that I haven't really seen before. And I think The Force Awakens was really the first moment that you saw stormtroopers with feelings, where, you saw Finn, where he, is struggling with the death of one of his friends. And then this episode in particular was another one where you see the emotions behind the stormtroopers. And I think that was a different moment. I don't want to say a cool moment, but a different moment.
Well said, by the way. Those are good ones to point out. C and Lars, do you guys want to chime in with big moments or revelations for you guys?
I thought the conversation with Mayfield, Din, and Valen Hess was like the biggest standout moment to me. I really enjoyed that back and forth between them. It was good.
I think one of the biggest moments is the end of the episode where Cara Dune basically. This episode for me was good because they actually had character arcs in fucking 38 minutes, man. Boom. Like, good storytelling, get in, get out. So the end when Cara Dune's like, homeboy died in that explosion. I don't know about you guys. I didn't see him. She went from hating this motherfucker in the beginning of the episode to being like, okay, I misjudged you. She had an arc. Bill Burr had an arc, and The Mandalorian had an arc. That's a good story. You did 3 people in one episode. That's freaking crazy. It's hard to do. It's hard to do as far as writing is concerned. So the ending where they tied all that in a nice little bow, that's my favorite.
Miggs's action in blowing up that radonium was like he's stopping something right then and there. That's going to have like immediate impacts to halting their plans. And I thought that was a nice touch to add, because he didn't really need to do any more after that. They could have just not even blown that up and just been on their way, and they still would have worked. But that act, I thought, spoke a lot. As we saw, it gave him, that, get out of jail card. So that was definitely a scene that I felt was a big moment.
And going back to that conversation where they're all sitting down at the table, and you could tell that Ness is describing, we did this for the greater good. We have ultimate plans later on. Mm-hmm. And you could just see in Mayfield's eyes that it's just eating at him. And he's going, you didn't know it at the time of how he was going to get out of that situation, but you knew he was going to kill him eventually.
That's another arc I forgot to say, was Mayfield's arc, where he starts off saying like, yo, hey, man, good, bad, it's all relative to where you're at, until he's facing true binary evil. Like Star Wars is real good at setting up binary morality, where there is good and there is evil. And gray doesn't really exist in the Star Wars universe. And if it does, it has to exist in a show like this. So all the shit Bill Burr was saying, where he's like, come on, Mando, blah, blah, blah. Hey, it's not all black and white. Come on. Till he's looking at this guy who he served under. And the dude was like, come on, trooper. Hey, it's for the Empire.
And this southern accent.
I'm telling you,
the galaxy.
Hold on. But again, that's not on purpose. That's not on accident either, right? Like, they know that triggers people and psychologically from a certain point of view because of pop culture and society and sociology cues that are there. There's a reason why, and you watch the original Star Wars movies, like the bad guys are British. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, the Empire. It's easy. It might be a little stereotypical, but it does the job from a storytelling perspective to get you, the audience member, in the mindset to be like, okay, got it. That's the guy. That's the bad dude right away. And Bill Burr's just kind of looking at him. You could see
He's disgusted.
he's reevaluating his positions on things where he's like, okay.
Yo, this is Botter. Sorry for interrupting this episode, but I'll keep it brief. I wanted to let you know about a massive sale we have going on over at the Shortbox Store on all of our merchandise and apparel. That's theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com. You can now save 20% off your entire order using the discount code YOO, Y-O-O. So if you've been waiting for the right time to finally buy that gauntlet snapback, or if you ever wanted to buy any of the shirts you see me wear on the podcast, well, now's your chance to get them for a steal. We still have a few sizes left of everything, but they won't last long, and once they're gone, they are gone. And then I mentioned that all of our apparel is screen printed on high quality material. None of that heat transfer or direct to garment stuff. Our shirts are some of the most comfortable ones you'll ever wear, and the hats look even better in person. So wear your support for the Shortbox Nation proudly, knowing that you're going to look damn good doing it. Get to theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com as soon as you can, and don't forget to use that discount code YOO, Y-O-O, to save 20% off your entire order. All of this information can be found in this episode's show notes if you want to get there faster. Thanks for not pressing fast forward. Now back to the show.
Yeah, the bad guys are either British or failed Confederate soldiers.
Right. Well, you watch the first Star Wars movie, you watch A New Hope, it's like the Texas Air National Guard is going up against the Empire, and you're like, how'd these guys get Southern accents?
Before we go any further, let's take a step back and do something fun. This is Cesar's favorite part of our episodes, where we get to spotlight some Easter eggs and other cool findings and talk about the importance. Cesar, your gripe was duly noted from last episode.
Ew, you duly noted me? You fucking duly noted me? Ew.
You mentioned last episode that I tend to favor Lars for the Easter eggs, and he always takes all the good ones.
Oh, okay.
And
all right.
I wanted to give you the honors of kicking us off, and I'll ask, what Easter egg did you find, buddy?
Thank you, man. Thank you. I'm only going to do one. That's it. Just one. And it's the TPS reports one, where Bill Burr makes a reference to Office Space, which cracks me up because that was my life for a while. I literally had 9 bosses, and I did have to do TPS reports for all of them. Then they didn't talk with each other, so that made me laugh. Lars, take it away. All the other Easter eggs.
Nah, he's right, Lars. You take it away. What Easter eggs did you find?
Well, I thought it was pretty interesting that a certain comic book writer that most of you guys know got a lot of shout outs from some of his work, Greg Rucka. He got a lot of stuff that he's written about, talked about in here, and Operation Cinder. Operation Cinder was, obviously what Mayfield was getting upset about, but it was introduced in a comic called Shattered Realm. And then it was further dealt with in Battlefront 2, Ida Burzio's story. If you guys played her story, it deals with that. She's from like a planet where the Empire is sort of thought of and her dad is a well-to-do, higher up in the Empire, and she sort of is like a top fighter, like a top TIE fighter. Yeah. TIE fighter pilot.
Botter, is that you?
Yeah, I know, right? But anyway, yeah, so it's a great story. But Greg Rucka wrote Shattered Realm, and he also wrote this book, Han Solo and Chewbacca Experience, and it deals with that Tanab place where Mayfield tries to explain how Din lost his hearing, the whole brown eyes thing. But other than that, the Rhydonium has been mentioned in Clone Wars and been mentioned in Rebels. That was about it that I noticed. Also, Boba Fett's blaster showed up. He had his EE3 carbine, which is like his classic weapon.
There you go.
That was the Easter egg.
That's the sauce right there, buddy. That shit made me hard.
So, all right, well, then I actually have 3 to bring up. This is the first episode in the entire series where Grogu doesn't show up at all.
Oh my God! What will everyone do?
I missed him.
Yeah. Blythe really did miss him a lot. I mean, she was, sad, crying, and I was a little bit too. All right, but this is the first episode in the entire series. Grogu doesn't show up. I've got that seismic bomb that Boba drops is I think he drops it. And Lars, you got to correct me here. Didn't he drop that same bomb in like Attack of the Clones?
His father did.
Yeah, Django did, but Boba was in the ship. But yeah, he was chasing Obi-Wan, or Obi-Wan was chasing him.
Well, it was a nice little nugget too, and he was like, when they were asking like who's going to go in for the mission, and he's like, "Oh, they might recognize my face."
Yeah, that was awesome. He's like, "Yeah, it's probably not a good idea."
Nah, they ain't gonna recognize you with that crisp new armor that you got.
Yeah,
like,
dude,
he upgrade. Yeah, exactly. It's matte now. It's matte green.
Matt Green.
I think it looks sick. Like the damage looks cool, but I thought that it looked slick. It looked good.
Yeah.
I like the robes underneath. That's
Yeah.
what I like. That's sweet.
And I think Blythe already mentioned this one, but Mando's speech at the end of this episode is like a really good interpolation of Moff's speech he gave in episode or season 1. I think episode like 8 or something. Like it was like before.
Yeah, he just
the last
changed
one.
the pronouns is what he did, which was cool. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, like that one. I mean, he changed it from it matters to me more than et cetera, to he matters more to me.
more.
Which I mean that one change alone had such a big impact.
That's just my baby daddy.
Yeah, like we saw Mando get his Liam Neeson on with this one.
I don't know who you are. I will find you. I will kill you. This is the way.
Wait, one more that I want to mention that we haven't really talked about being like it's super Game of Thrones fans is that obviously the same character who's playing Din Djarin is Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones, and so we got to see some spear action, so that maybe will hint to how he will fight off with the Beskar spear against Moff Gideon.
Pedro Pascal like trained. I forget the name of the art form that he was doing, but he trained with like a legit spear and got really good at it for Game of Thrones for that role. And I did notice this episode, I think we got the most, granted, I mean, circumstances were the driving force for this, but this was an episode where we saw Mando more fisticuffs. He was more hand-to-hand and with the spear, and he wasn't using, he didn't have his usual arsenal. And
you saw him get hurt a lot, too. Like, that's not the same. That Stormtrooper gear is not the same as the Beskar.
That shit was like cardboard. He was like, my shoulder.
He's wincing, going back and
He's
sitting
like,
down.
fuck, now I got to actually fight.
Blythe, I'll go to you to kick us off, and then Lars and C, you guys can chime in. But I think it's safe to say we were all expecting Mando to reveal his face by way of taking off his Mandalorian helmet. I mean, hell, I think we've mentioned it quite a few times these last a few recap episodes that we've done, and even as part of like our predictions, we all kind of assumed that he was going to be taking off his helmet at the end of this season in some way, whether it be to Grogu or someone else. How do we feel about how Mando unmasked? Was it a surprise? Were you expecting it in this episode? Would you rather have preferred it done in the season finale or under different circumstances? What are your thoughts?
I think we've kind of been trending that way ever since Bo-Katan and her crew got introduced, where he's starting to he's learning that other Mandalorians live different ways, and it sort of goes back to the episode title of the believer, and your beliefs are shaped based off of where you're born. And so I think that was one of the first realizations that, hey, that slogan rings true. Your morals get messy when things that you love are challenged. And so I think that that's a moment of desperation for him. So it made sense to me that he's going to reveal it. And I wouldn't be shocked if we see it happen more often. But it was weird to see him speaking, because I don't know that when he removed his helmet last time, if he actually spoke, but to see him speaking and see that voice like come out without the helmet on was a little awkward. It was like, whoa.
Now, granted, when he took his helmet off in season 1, his brains was spilling out the back of his head. So I don't think
he was like fucking halfway mentally handicapped, just like
yeah. So I will kind of.
It was just one of those things where he's like, you see him speaking, and it's like, oh, that is Din Djarin, but is it really? Because is there a voiceover or something? Because it just didn't. I don't know. It didn't feel I don't want to say it didn't feel appropriate. I'm looking for a phrase, but it just
the stakes didn't seem high enough for him to get his helmet off, right? Like there should have been another way that they could have done it to where it seemed like the writers could have figured out another way. It bothered me a little bit, just like what you thought, but upon thinking about it again, like I'm willing to overlook if there's a larger story element there that supersedes it, right? Like if there's something else going on story-wise that they want to focus on, if they find a better way to do it, right? If they find a better way to show the Mandalorian basically saying, as rigid and as honorable as my samurai code is, my priority is this little boy. And if they find a better way of doing that, then, because I think maybe I'm wrong in assuming this, that all of us were kind of betting on if he ever takes his helmet off, it will be for the benefit of either I have to do it for the sake of this kid or nothing else. This seemed like, oh shit, like they could have written it a little more impactful. Like if that's the case, like they could have like, they kind of wrote themselves into a corner. I think the last episode was not good as it could have been seeing this episode. Like I think they could have mushed last week's episode and this week's episode together. And it would have been a lot more impactful. God, that would have been fucking amazing. You'd have got so much and it wouldn't have been overdone. But at first I had a problem with it. Like I was like, oh, okay, that was fast. Cool. I guess he just took off his helmet then. Weird. I don't know how I feel about that. But I'm like, show hasn't let me down yet. We'll see. We'll see.
I didn't mind it from as much as what sounds like you guys did. I thought it was just him dipping his toes into being more comfortable. Also, the stakes of I have to do this for the kid, trying to show his dedication to his love and his family, or like vibe towards the child. I also thought it showed some interesting vulnerability around Mayfield, and it made him less like almost like robotic to me. You know, like you haven't seen a whole lot of his heart in the series. You started to see more in the beginning of the second series and stuff when he's playing with the child and stuff like that. I think this is just really the positives of it for me were that it made him seem more relatable.
And that was one thing that Mayfield and him and Din got into a little bit of an argument earlier in the episode where Din says to him, you and I are nothing alike. And then by the end of the episode, it's like, we probably have more in common than you think.
Maybe my expectations were too high. I think I was waiting for a grand gesture when it came to the mask. And I felt a little let down with this reveal, only because the circumstances around it felt a little questionable. You know,
it's not wrong for you to think that, by the way, because they set that up in the first season. Like there's multiple episodes where they're like, yo, taking off this mask is a big fucking deal. And not just religiously for the Mandalorian, like from a storytelling perspective, right?
I think that sense of danger, you know, it was kind of dissipated because the whole premise for him taking off his helmet was one of them, between Miggs or him, needed to have their face scanned by that terminal.
Very weak security clearance for this.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. This might come off as me nitpicking, and that's fine. It's my turn to nitpick for once. Is it just scanning for any face? Because why would his face register as good? I mean, if he's never shown his face before. As someone, we've seen Mando be very resourceful in all situations, and I felt like now granted, I guess like he was running he's running against, like, you know, it was a matter of time. Someone needed to go do it. But the fact that Miggs later came in and kind of saved the day with no, hey, this is my commanding officer, he's deaf. And it was like, well, then all of his worries were kind of a moot point because he ends up having a fucking drink with the guy, you know?
Right.
So the stakes at that moment weren't that big.
Right.
Granted, I will give some leeway because it was just a matter of timing. We need to get this fucking
And I
info
think they
now.
also hinted to it earlier when him and Grogu are sitting down and he's lifting up his mask a little bit to drink and Grogu is looking under. They kind of hint to it that he's becoming a little more lackadaisical with the rules.
Sure, but he's not going to give up his code all the way, right?
Yeah.
Then he would completely let himself and his kid down, right? Because he wants essentially his proxy son to look at him and see him as an example, right? So he could be like, look, I see the Mandalorian not all the way giving up everything for Grogu's sake. Like,
no, so your morals get messy when
there would be there would be some sort of that, but therein lies conflict, right? There's where you get drama, right? Mm-hmm. It seems like lazy writing for them to just be like, all right, well, I'm just going to take my helmet off, as opposed to let's shoot a scene where he just kind of stands in the shadows and gives it to Bill Burr and says, do what you got to do.
I will say that after, I've been watching a lot and like researching a lot on this show, obviously every single week after the new episode drops, but I did hear some rumors that during the filming of the show that the actor for Din Djarin, and I'm blanking on his
Pedro
name.
Pascal.
Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this.
He was kind of getting angry with Disney that he has to wear a mask the whole time, and that he's not getting that recognition that he felt like he deserved to a point where he reportedly walked off of set one day and then came back and wanted to renegotiate his contract and do all of these things. These are all just rumors,
I think that's
speculation.
fake. I think they put that out there so that way when this episode comes out, everybody will be like, "Oh, see, they threw him a bone."
Yeah.
Oh, you see, and it creates buzz, and everybody wants to watch the show.
I won't say that this episode was a filler, because I will go ahead,
no way.
I will go on record and say this might be, but I'll wait until next week before we do our top, whatever episode of the season, but this is definitely top 3. I thought this episode, from a story, a character arc perspective, storytelling, a philosophical, dealing with like certain topics, they nailed it. Like the
pacing's so good.
Exactly. But I don't, and here's the flip side is I won't call this a filler episode, but I wasn't expecting a big revelation like this to happen in an episode like this.
How'd you feel about Mad Max Fury Road? Because you fucking just watched it again. Like, it's good.
Which might be why I like this episode.
I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, it's a good episode.
I would go the complete opposite way. I think it was, as I would say, on a scale of 1 to 10, this was about a 7 for me, which is they don't really get below a 7.
Blythe,
but I would say
I'm a 7, okay? As a 7, I'm going to tell you.
But I would say it's probably my and I use this phrase like loosely. It's my second least favorite episode of the season.
Okay,
Lars, I'm gonna look to you, man, on a scale of
1 to C.
No, fuck it. It's a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10. Jedi lightsabers, 10 being the best.
You're fucking dumb, dude.
I'm trying,
what
man.
What are you doing, bro?
I gotta get these patrons somehow.
Yeah.
Lars, how would you rate this episode? Would you ding it for anything? Let's hear your thoughts.
I'd say on the first pass, I thought it was more filler, but then when I sat and watched it slower and just like absorbed it, I definitely didn't think that on the second run.
Yes.
I give it an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it.
I think that the second watch was where I appreciated a lot more of those moments. The first watch, I was like, that's it? Like, that's how we're going to end this episode? Like, that was my first reaction, but I'm also watching it at like 9 a.m.
I think the reason why this episode hit a little softer than I thought, I just imagined there being a bigger cliffhanger connection to the next episode. Just because last season gave us that. It left us with like this cliffhanger. I think that's whenever they abducted the child. Man, I cannot remember, but I remember the second to last episode, there was a big cliffhanger leading into the last episode. That was very exciting, and I just couldn't wait to watch that next one. I just didn't get that, and I expected it.
Let me ask you a question, Lars. What do you want from this show?
Dude, I don't know, because I watch Star Wars. Sadly, I watch it from this like ultra wanting to get deep into the lore nerdy aspect. Like sometimes I'm dead ass serious. I miss plot points because I am just looking for these clues of the future. So that's like where I find fault in my viewing is I just like I hear that Operation Cinder and I get fucking rock hard. Like like it sends me off on a tangent of, oh man, okay, the Sentinels that like that's what I. So at some points I might just watch it like with glossy eyes. But
Butter Blythe, same question.
I would say it very similar to what Lars said, except for the rock hard part. That's not possible for me.
You never know.
It's not possible for me.
Blythe is like, yo, I peace out with my fleece out. It is.
Unless younger Han Solo appears somehow in this episode, that's probably the only way that's going to happen for me.
Oh, my stars and garters.
But I would say with this particular episode, it did initially, I was like, this is a filler episode. I think that was my first comment as soon as we got done watching it. And I'm like, well, what the hell? Like, there's so many things to set up for, you have one episode left and there's so many things you have to get to. It almost feels like at a larger scale, this entire season has been setting up the Star Wars cinematic universe, sort of like the Marvel cinematic universe. So it sort of feels that way to me. Almost like we're setting up other series before we're really recapping everything that's going on with this show.
I enjoy these types of episodes because it brings the scope back down. It brings it a little more tighter. I'm not having to worry about, is this a springboard for something else? And I will say this season to me has been plagued for good and bad with a series of episodes being springboards for other shows. And then we kind of like lose Mando to the side. For example, last episode, Boba Fett and Finnick reappearing.
The episode before that, too.
Yeah, a majority of that episode, we didn't see Mando. Hell, Mando was unconscious by some rocks, for a majority of that episode. The episode prior to that, Ahsoka being introduced. Granted, a big character, long-awaited fan favorite. I respect it. I get it. But I felt like we lost some potential to further grow Mando's character arc in that. I feel like all these instances of like these big fan service moments, once again, for good and bad, that's more time that we could have been developing the Mando story, Grogu's relationship.
Look what they did in 38 minutes with 4 characters. Changed how you thought. They changed from the beginning of the 1 minute mark to 38-minute mark. They're all different, and they all went on a journey, and they weren't all in the same place together. That's good ass writing. The last 3 episodes felt slow, and they felt like filler to me. Because
I'm completely opposite. I feel like those are the big moments for me where it's super exciting.
I think this is the power or the benefit or like what we all have enjoyed about the Mandalorian series is that it does appeal to folks like you and Lars who get their rocks up to those mentions, those fan service moments. But it also still tells like a really solid story. And I felt like this was a really good addition to that focused story of Mando.
This is an episode you don't need to know shit about Star Wars to watch, and we're right back to it. That's what I liked.
And I think that's where my after my second viewing, I took a greater appreciation where it's almost like you're settling in for this show instead of the big moments that are clearly going to come at the end of this season. But it was still one of those moments where I'm like, at first, I didn't care at all about Bill Burr's character. I'm like, why is he coming back? Like, he's going to, throw some quick jokes out there, but what could he really serve to the overall benefit of the show? And then after the second viewing, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, it's a very symbolic relationship between him and now Din Djarin, where
Cara Dune.
And they have more character, I guess, likeness than they have differences.
Yeah, I will say Bill Burr I was the same way. I was like, okay, damn, Bill Burr is back for another episode. He didn't really do much in that introduction episode other than being Bill Burr, which is fantastic on its own. But this episode was an example of like the production, the writing.
They made him Han Solo. They made him Han Solo. You may not think he's pretty, but I'll tell you right now, same character arc. Han Solo was a piece of shit pirate.
But he never worked for the Empire.
Excuse me? I believe he did literally enlist, and he was in their officer program.
He did.
Yeah. He had tough choices.
Look,
of his own free will, based on like stuff that's not canon no more.
Just got
God, his girlfriend.
Yeah, this is so funny. This dichotomy is really fucking.
All I'm saying is that it's the same thing. Is that you watch A New Hope? Han Solo is only in it for himself. Nobody had any context with Han Solo ever before that movie, so they don't know if they can trust him. Same with Bill Burr. It's the exact same character arc. You have a dude who all you know about him is he's a criminal, and then on top of that, he was in the Empire. So you're like, not a good guy. And then at the end of the episode, he literally does some selfless shit.
They make you care about him.
Right. He doesn't, his battalion, his platoon, they're all dead. So it's not like he's doing it for them, So he's like, I got my revenge when I shot that guy. That's all he needs done. But he kept going, and he helped the Mandalorian escape, and he's like, hey, I hope you find your little green kid, basically. So, like, that scene is the exact same equivalent to Han Solo eventually looking at Luke one day in the future and saying, may the Force be with you, Even though he doesn't all the way buy into it, it's like he's changed. You can tell. They'll give the audience little clues, like, by the way, in case you haven't noticed, this guy's not the same anymore. And he could be a potential ally in the future. He ain't pretty as Harrison Ford, I'll tell you that much.
I would still say that Bill Burr's character was a little bit more cold-blooded as far as like murder is concerned.
Only because of the context of the time period.
But Han would never do that.
Because the 1970s, they were still telling that kind of story. They couldn't do that in a PG movie.
Lars, I'm going to go to you, man. Do you have any significant themes that you wanted to highlight or talk about that this episode had?
Again, I'll go back to the Operation Cinder and like sort of explain also what that was. And the theme behind it is that when Palpatine was presumed dead after Return of the Jedi, Operation Cinder was like his last wishes that were he like programmed these Sentinel droids that had like his face projected on them. They're really creepy in the video game. But anyway, the point was that he had the bigger Empire flagships put these like satellite arrays over highly populated planets that could control the weather and cause like massive hurricanes and like crazy electrical storms. So what they did was they not only killed thousands of innocent people, they killed, hundreds of thousands of millions of Empire soldiers, because the whole point of it was to instill fear and of the Empire, where they were the only source of safety that people could reach out to. That you're going to fear this overlord and be submissive. But I guess that's it. He was just pretty much saying that the Rhydonium was gonna instill more fear in the galaxy, and it'll be the way that we pull everybody back together under our foot.
Kind of like what Ness was saying during that little sit-down table speech. He says everyone wants freedom, but what they really want is order.
Yeah, scary.
And it's scary true. Like globally here, real world life, like that is true.
I have a weird fascination or I get a weird like sense of like excitement when I get to see the Empire be portrayed in that way. As a casual fan, I feel like the depth and true reaches of how diabolical the Empire is sometimes lost due to like just say being kind of campy or funny. Like I know the stormtroopers can't shoot is like a trope.
Sure.
And granted, they've blown up planets and the movies I've watched, and that is crazy. But
moral relativity also undermines how scary they can be as well. It's like, oh, but there's people in the Empire that just do it to go to college, bro.
And they went out of the way to make baby-sized shackles. Somebody made an order for baby-sized shackles.
Very right. Lars, you didn't need to bring that up. I'm still healing, but you're right. But it's moments like that where we get to see like truly how diabolical they are that impresses me, because it just, to me, the Empire is not scary enough in the movies.
Empire, 4, 5, 6, the original trilogy.
No, I agree. But I feel like everything after that, it just started to be lessened or cheapened. That moment with Hess and him talking about like wrecking more havoc and this diabolical plan of like we're going to cause the fucking havoc, so they're coming back, so they willfully come back to us for that ordering. That's like fucking
He's spouting that fascist rhetoric, dude.
Yo, and it's even more crazy that it's like there's like real life ties, but I think Hess played a spectacular Imperial officer. And the Imperial officers, to me, have been fantastic this season.
I think it's too, because you almost recognize like people that that could become someone like that. That it's a very like dangerous, like fine line to walk, where he probably believes that he's doing something right and doing something quote unquote good for the greater good, but in reality, he's a terrorist.
And the fact that Miggs in that moment, like his nonchalant, jaded, skeptic, like
he threw
persona,
that all out the window,
right
dude.
out his face of like, oh no, these motherfuckers are deliberately evil.
Because I'm saying he has a moral center like Han Solo. He's not just a fucking pirate. Like he fronts like Han Solo fronted. Like it's just about money, folky religions and fucking no good for except the blaster by your side,
That's
kid.
true.
You
all
know,
of it.
is he sitting here? And then he's just sitting here like he's sitting here looking at this dude, licking his lips, like my fucking whole platoon died. Did you see the Mandalorian's face? Like he's looking at him like he's sitting here like when keeping it real goes wrong.
He just wants to go back to his safe place and just put the helmet back on.
Like he's just like, yo, this motherfucker's gonna get us killed, bro. Stop, just stop, please stop talking.
The neck turns from one person to the other.
You heard that? You gonna let him say that about your mom?
I said, bitch.
Hey, Lars, let me ask you a question. I need you to be very honest with me, Lars. Did you rock your stash today because Pedro Pascal had his stash in this episode?
No, it's just seasonal depression, dog.
Jesus Christ.
Damn, Lars.
No,
we're here for you, buddy.
Bro, it's the season of Yule. This is your people, bro. Come on, man. This is a happy time.
Things are on the up, guys. We got a lot of shows announced leading off into the next part of our segment.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Lars.
Dang,
God damn.
segue.
Look at him with a little
All right,
smile,
host.
too.
All right, host. All right, yeah. I guess we can jump right
Anyway,
into that.
Lars is the new host of the show.
Before we wrap up, I did want to have some fun outside of Mandalorian. As most of you know, this past Thursday was Disney's Investor Day 2020 event, where we got universe-spanning news that Disney Plus has plans to release approximately 10 new Star Wars series, in addition to many more live-action and animated series across their various brands. I wanted to ask all of you, among the many Star Wars announcements that we got these past couple days, what is the series that you're most excited for? I'm going to go to Lars.
There's a lot. Some are going to be bad. I mean, like something has to be bad.
God bless your
But-
honesty.
The droid story.
No, man. Dude, the Droids cartoon from the 80s was fucking sick. Like, that cartoon was fucking sick. And I like, you guys won't even watch Rebels, so you're not going to go on YouTube. And
I
watch
will
fucking Droids.
I will co-sign that with Lars. The Great Heap episode of Droids was my favorite.
Visions. I'm very excited about anime. You know, like the Star Wars manga stuff is fucking dope. I have a lot of it. They did a manga version of Lost Stars. I'm really excited. Maybe they'll do a Lost Stars anime. That's exciting. The other part is I've always been excited about Obi-Wan, but the fact that they announced that Hayden Christensen is getting another shot at being Vader is very exciting.
I would piggyback off of that. That's my actual selection because I think that there's one moment that we miss from the original trilogy when Vader is talking to Luke and he mentions that Obi-Wan once thought as you do. And in the context of watching that one movie, you're not really sure what Vader is referring to when he's saying that to Luke. So I think that this series is going to really explore a lot of that, especially like the PTSD that Obi-Wan suffered after losing his brother. I mean, he called Anakin his brother. And then just from like the outsider's perspective of knowing how much shit that Hayden Christensen caught after the prequels, because the prequels were the movies that I first got introduced to Star Wars. I knew about Star Wars, but the prequels were the first ones to me. And I never understood the hate because I loved them. Like as a kid, like growing up, I thought that they were really great movies. I had a lot of fun watching them. And those were the ones that made me want to go and watch the original trilogy. And I thought Hayden Christensen did as good of a job as he could with the script that he was given. So I'm looking forward to almost him getting his redemption with this. And I'm also really looking forward to like future like Obi-Wan and Vader fights because that is arguably the best scene at the end of Rogue One, spoiler alert, when Vader like just starts wrecking shit. Like that to me is, I want to see more of that. I do remember like Kathleen Kennedy saying that, you know, Vader versus Obi-Wan is going to be the rematch of the century. And I thought of you, Cesar, when you said that.
Wait, did you think of Cesar positively or because he was going to shit
I was
on
like,
it?
oh, he is going to hate that.
No, it's not. Look, I'm just look. Just write it well. Just write it well is all I care about.
Yeah.
If it's well written, we're good. We're good.
See, I want to go to you. What's the one series out of all of those announcements that you
already
are
know. I know why you're asking
somewhat
this.
interested,
None of
maybe
them.
kind of happy?
Nope, none of them. None of them. I'm not excited about any of them. None of them. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, you ain't gonna fool me again. Yeah, I'm very trepidatious when it comes to this sort of thing because it literally feels like Disney's MO is to just pour out the corporate slop in a trough and see which little piggy's gonna come and nibble it up. And I'm sorry, I know how the sausage is made, no pun intended. Too much for me to just be like, oh, it's all going to be good. And Lars said it. He was like, yeah, they can't all be winners, you know? So I will I'll just wait.
Cautiously optimistic.
I will be, I'll just be cautious.
The optimistic part.
I'm neutral. I'm Boba Fett about this shit. Like, I'm just kind of like, what if he doesn't survive? Like, that's me. Like, I'm just like chilling. I'm watching from the shadows. Just pay me.
I will go ahead and echo. Lars had selected mine. The one that I'm most excited for is this Star Wars Visions. It's supposed to be a series of animated short films that celebrate Star Wars Galaxy through the lens of anime creators. Apparently, there will be like 10 quote-unquote fantastic visions, according to Kathleen Kennedy. I do want to see how that goes. And Lars, I had no idea that there was already a manga in place. This excited me because I had never... I don't know of any Star Wars anime. Is there any existing Star Wars anime, or is this all brand new?
There's fan, but they've adapted a lot of the stories into manga, along with Lost Stars, which is like my favorite Star Wars book. And Adam will also tell you that I think is his favorite one as well.
Rogue Squadron piques my interest only because of that sweet little teaser they did with Patty Jenkins, that little spotlight. I feel like she's going to knock this one out of the park because of her close ties with the subject matter. I had no idea that her dad was a fighter pilot that lost his life, and she's always wanted to do a fighter pilot story. And now she gets Star Wars. So I am hopeful that maybe her emotional attachment to it might make for a good movie in art form. Was there any and Lars, you can kick us off with this question. Was there any series that made you roll your eyes or you're definitely looking at it a little strangely?
I guess Rangers of the New Republic. I just didn't. I don't know. Like I was like, where is that going to go? But I'm sure it could be interesting. I mean, I just hope it's not just Dave Filoni and that dude riding around in space, but maybe it is. I don't know. I forgot about Lando was announced as well. But that, I don't know where the fuck's that going to go.
Right.
And it has to be Donald Glover that comes back. Otherwise, what's the point?
So I hope he doesn't do a bad job acting as he did in fucking Solo. Hi, I'm Donald Glover doing my impression of Billy D. Williams. As opposed to just fucking act, dude. Don't do a fucking impression. Hey, it's me. I'm the fucking sweetest dude in the galaxy. Let me kiss your hand.
He had a very strange love affection for
I fuck robots. You got a problem with it? That's a little racist.
I mean, and honestly, that's probably something young Lando
I like
would have
to
done.
stick my dick inside a washing machine.
He seems like the experimental type.
Life closes out with this question. Was there any series for you that made you side-eye?
The droid story. I just can't imagine.
Where's your heart, Blythe? Where's your heart?
I love R2-D2. I love C-3PO. I just can't imagine what there is to have. And I'm assuming it's a limited run series or it's just a one-off episode. If it's a one-off episode, that's one thing. If it's an entire series, how could you possibly have that much information?
Mr. Splife, why do you hate us so much?
It's who they run into. It's not going to be, it's going to be them in situations with other supporting characters. But
y'all sound very just defensive about the droids.
Well, I am.
You know what? Because that's the one that's probably going to be good that no one expects.
That's
because
true.
Everyone's going to be shitting on it.
I'm putting it out in the universe for that exact reason.
If there's a droid, I'll fuck it. Stick my dick inside that terminal port. You know what I mean?
All right, back to
Vada just embrace this weird segment.
No, please don't. Let me wrap up. Back to Mandalorian. To close us out for this episode, we've got one more episode of The Mandalorian for the season finale. Although we have to go with at the moment is that it will be written by Jon Favreau. I haven't seen anything in regards to a special producer or a director jumping in. It's just going to be written by Jon Favreau according to the information available. I was curious to hear from you guys, based on the happenings from this episode, what's your best guess or prediction of what happens next or how the season will close? I know we've been sharing a lot of our predictions throughout these episodes. Has it changed any?
I don't know. I just don't want to see Baby Yoda or Grogu just turn to the dark side. I feel like that's how the season's going to end.
Oh, he's going to be a teenager. Of course he's going to turn to the dark side. He's going to go through puberty, you know?
There's still good in him. I feel it.
Oh, how many teenage boys do you know? You don't have any like nieces, like nephews or anything? Like just rolling around like don't talk to me. Changing.
I mean, even teenage Groot was kind of an asshole.
That's what I'm saying. That's how it's going to manifest. He's like, I told you to stop force choking people, kid. And he'll be like, you're not my real dad.
What is the quote from Bridesmaids? I snapped a blanket in half the other day.
Lars, what about you, man? Predictions for the season finale or where we go next with Mandalorian?
I think we're going to probably see Moff Gideon fail in front of everybody, and in the end will be revealed Thrawn.
It's fair to say, because this kind of show, they could easily wrap things up and still be just as interesting the next season, just again. But I think that based on the way that they're telling the story, it's going to be not resolved this season. That's for sure.
I thought for sure we would have had more storylines from this most recent episode leading into the final episode of this season. Like Bo-Katan maybe coming back and her crew. I didn't see any of that. So I don't even know if they're going to come back for the final episode.
I thought for sure Lando was going to come back. Hey, what's going on?
Where there's droids and fucking Lando?
Those droids better be ducking because my dicks are fucking. It's me, Lando Cal fucking Rizian. Hey, everybody. Ready?
Disney would not approve, but we've
Put your
had some
penis
champagne.
This is what, no. This is what happens when we record the regular short box episodes before the Mando.
It's true. It really is true.
I think my biggest prediction I've shared every episode has been we're going to get some sort of Avengers Endgame type shit where all of these characters that have made cameos or come back for the last season to kind of help save the day, last moment type thing. But I don't think that's the case anymore. I thought we were going to get like the big helmet reveal in the season finale. That's already been kind of taken from us. I think the crew that he currently has of Cara Dune and Boba and Finnick, I think those will be the only characters we get because I don't see why Bo-Katan or Ahsoka would show up. Like it just unless they made something off scene where hey we'd send out a track. It just don't make no sense.
Ahsoka no, but Bo-Katan because she's after the Darksaber. That's the only reason why I would think that she would show up.
Maybe get like a Mando, like a Mandalorian kind of rescue kind of scene. I'm hoping whatever's in store for season 3 because we know there is a season 3 taking place. I think it's even being currently filmed.
It's like pre-production right now.
I am hoping that season 3 because they got all of these springboard cameos out of the way, these trampoline cameos, what I'm calling them.
The Mandalorian's biggest enemy is it's basically like Disney basically saying like the show's not about you. The show's not about you. This episode,
I'll even go on to say that I don't even think that we get Grogu rescued this episode. I know it breaks my heart to say that, but I don't think we get Grogu this episode or this next episode. I think it'll carry over into season 3. I wouldn't be surprised.
But that's why I think that Moff Gideon will survive to season 3. I think he's going to be around for a while. And even the actor, he did an interview and he mentioned that there's going to be a lot more Moff Gideon to come. So I think that hints towards not just season 3, but future seasons too.
That's fair. Listeners, I think we are at a good stopping point. I want to go ahead and extend the invite for you to tell us what new Star Wars series you're most excited for. Is it one of the live action shows? Is it one of the animated series? What announcement are you looking forward to? What are your thoughts on the season finale of Mandalorian? If you guys send them in before next Monday, we will have a chance to read any emails you send on the actual episode. So send us a short email at theshortboxjacks@gmail.com with your thoughts. Blythe, C, Lars, thank you guys so much for being a spectacular panel.
Also, send me some quick news, Lando.
I promise next episode, no Lando impersonation.
No face, no trace. You know the rules.
It's your fault. You kept giving him wine. I saw it.
Hey, you'll never find a more wretched hive of scum of villainy in my pants, baby.
Thanks for helping me put a bow on this episode. Well, with that out of the way, that is the end of our show, Shorebox Nation. How was it? Did we miss anything? Do you want to chime in with a thought or share something with us to read on the next episode? Let us know by sending us a short email at theshortboxjacks@gmail.com. I personally want to recognize and thank the people who made this episode possible. Our sponsor, Gotham City Limit. My panel today, Blythe, Lars, and Cesar. Thank you. And a special praise goes out to our Patreon subscribers who help us keep the lights on here at the Shortbox Studio. If you enjoyed the podcast and are in a position to support the show with a small donation, consider becoming a Shortbox patron. We'll reward you with bonus episodes and other perks. Visit patreon.com/shortbox to find out more. Thanks again for tuning in. You could be listening to any other podcast, but you're here with us, and that means a lot. We'll be back next week to cover the last episode of this season. And of course, don't forget to check out our regular weekly episodes that drop every Wednesday. This week, we'll be covering all the new Marvel shows and news that was announced for Disney+. Look out for that on your favorite podcast app. In the meantime, have a great week and continue to make mine and yours Shortbox. This is the way.